Eliza R. Snow is a role model for many Mormon women. And something that's quite interesting is that she never had children, which I find remarkable and rather encouraging for me, as a matter of fact.
To say that Eliza was a prolific poet is an understatement. Many of her poems have been set to music, the most notable being Oh, My Father. She played such an important role in the early church, I felt she would be a natural as a subject for a one-woman show, especially set at one of the great crossroads of her life.
Man! 5 minutes. Thanks.
The evening of February 11th, 1846. The Mormons are being forced from their homes in the middle of winter. Everything Eliza has is gone. She finds herself nearly destitute, living on the charity of others, and faced with a question.
Got your watch?
Mm-hmm. Does she go east to her mother's or west with the saints?
Welcome to tonight's performance of A High and Glorious Place. Please remember that recording devices and photography of any kind are prohibited.
Yeah, she's in place.
Thank you. Enjoy the show.
Contention can rob the spirit of grace and wisdom and is responsible for catapulting me upwards at least 7 times a day.
I deserve this!
Sometimes 8. Oh, stairs are like the Almighty. They are no respecter of persons. But for a middle-aged matron, or for any middle-aged woman for that matter, stairs represent... Oh, stop pontificating, Eliza. Stairs are hell. I have been immersed in the company of saints this entire day, making ready for our compulsory journey west. The elders have met and continue to meet in the temple. The sisters called a meeting to correlate supplies. The brethren met to determine the wagon situation. Add to that any number of family meetings around town. I have never known a people, such as us Mormons, who delight so in meetings. I have helped everyone else, and now it is my turn to pack. Though President Young has forbidden our Female Relief Society, some of us renegade sisters, and I say renegade with a smile, have continued our relief efforts to make sure that all families have the necessities to sustain life. Our only dilemma? There are not enough necessities to sustain life. Oh, how the Gentiles expect us to survive this brutal winter, though I am sure our survival is not their goal. Sarah and I were talking. Oh, you don't know Sarah, do you? Sarah Melissa Granger Kimball. Is that not a name to be reckoned with? Sarah, my best friend and compatriot. Sarah and I were talking about the remarkable resilience we saints have. This will be the 3rd time in our short Mormon history that we have settled in an undesirable place, made it prosper, attracted the Gentiles, angered the Gentiles, and been forced to move. What an interesting pattern we have. What a peculiar people we are.
There's plenty of room. We'll just stack it higher. We can't stack it higher.
The Gentiles mean to disband us, but many of us have left countries and families and former homes for this church, and we will not so easily be discouraged. Hopefully, we will relocate ourselves far enough away this time that the Gentiles will not so easily track us down. Oh, for the past 3 weeks, I have been up at 5:30, and it has been non-stop until supper. Blessed respite. Oh, thou favorite retirement, palladium of joys, removed from the bustle of nonsense and noise, while so sweetly the moments in silence pass by, when there's nobody here but Eliza and I. That is one of my favorites. I'm quite fond of my verse. It shows great prowess, don't you think? In my youth, I imagined myself a great poet, living in London or Paris, where I would write and read and converse with other great poets. I had such dreams, such possibilities, such prospects. I realize that the thought of me having prospects, marriage prospects, is enough to make the youthful chuckle and the aged sneer, but it is true nonetheless. In my youth I had proposals. I did, but no suitor was suitable. I could not comprehend why this was at the time. Father was perplexed, and I was as well, but none of them seemed right. Then I embraced the gospel and finally understood my selectivity. You see, I doubt whether any of my unsuitable suitors have converted to my particular faith. And to be shackled in a marriage that might have prevented my footsteps from being led to the truth, I would prefer a lifetime of physical isolation to an eon of spiritual emptiness. And so, I have been able to explain away those years of matrimonial deprivation which occurred before my conversion as the hand of God intervening on my behalf. But I must admit to a certain sorrow. No, irritation. That after my conversion some years ago, flocks of Mormon men did not beat a path to my door. Granted, there was not an abundance of the animal, but still, it makes a body wonder. Perhaps discouraged. Yes, well, but so that you do not think me entirely without feminine merit, there was, before all of our current troubles, one young man, Abel Butterworth. He was a friend and missionary companion of my brother Lorenzo. Lorenzo, now there is a worthy man in his own right. But I was speaking of Abel. Tall, sinfully handsome. I must admit that until he came along, I had resigned myself to a life of religion and solitude. It was not until Abel that I could actually picture myself as wife. Ye maidens who are blessed with sense, wit, beauty, and intelligence, whene'er you leave the single life, be each the thrifty farmer's wife. Ye vainer ones who are fond of show, who step as mincing as you go, if you would have the best of life, be, if you can, the farmer's wife. Wife. What an elusive state that has been for me. But why did this condition of matrimony not transpire with Abel? I was amiable and generous of spirit. There was no logical reason. I prayed fervently, yet he went away. Yes, well. Ofttimes I look around me and wonder how a woman such as I, from such a heritage, with such prospects, this is not the stuff of dreams. Since Abel, I have always inwardly thanked him for giving me the first glimpse of myself as wife. a role that was, of sorts, to come.
Me listen to the prophet. You should be listening to the prophet. You need to make a little sacrifice. Well, why don't we just bring him over here right now and maybe he can settle this dispute? This has been absolutely unbearable.
Hannah Markham has the wind capacity Gabriel would envy. But they will be quiet by 10. Mark my words. I have never known two people who argue as much as Hannah and Stephen Markham. If one said something was red, the other would say it was blue. It is surprising they agree on the gender of their children. But they love each other. Of that I am sure. At least I think they do. Oh, I don't know. I have lived in this attic room with the Markhams nearly these 2 years, and I do not know if they even like each other. Affairs of the heart perplex me. Suffice it to say that if Providence had willed, it might be my husband and me arguing downstairs about taking the China tea service across the plains. Part of me longs for an argument of that nature. Yes, well, spilt milk. It has stopped snowing. Oh. The stars with deep amaze stand fixed in steadfast gaze. I can never remember this part here. It talks about how Satan tried to move the stars, but in their glittering orbs did glow, until their Lord himself bespake, and bid them go. The Lord has spoken. It is time to go. Those couplets, the stars with deep amaze, are not mine, lest you think me a plagiarist. Milton, who should be awarded exaltation for those lines alone. I believe fervently that God is indeed no respecter of persons, except for the artist. I like to think God smiles just a little broader on us artists. Aren't delusions comforting? And now, to pack. That should take all of 10 minutes. I had never realized, but there are advantages to being nearly destitute. Never a question as to what to wear. Lack of clutter, the object of service. Yes. Except for starvation, poverty has its moments. I will not leave this behind. I have 3 brothers, Lorenzo, Lucius Augustus, and Samuel Pierce. Lorenzo is in Nauvoo, and Lucius and Samuel live with my mother in Walnut Grove, about 75 miles due east of here. And I have 2 sisters. Well, actually I had 3, but Melissa, dear, sweet Melissa, died in 35. I will always remember because it was in that year, April 5th to be exact, that I finally embraced the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ. 3 months after Melissa died. Losing Melissa and finding Christ. Death and salvation, sorrow and rapture. To experience 2 such contradictory emotions in the span of months. I thank the Lord for the resilience of the human heart. 1835. My, has it been 11 years? On the night of my baptism, as I lay in bed reflecting on the event, I remembered the water. The sound of it gurgled round my waist, its clarity, In April, you would expect a river to be cold, and it was at first very, but then never, before or since, have I felt warmer, more inviting water. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt an indescribable, tangible sensation, like, that is why it is indescribable. It started at my head and enveloped my whole body. For an instant, I was with God. Then just as quickly, it flew through my feet, leaving me filled with inexpressible joy. Immediately, I saw a beautiful candle with an unusual large, bright blaze directly over my feet. Since floating candles were not a usual occurrence in my room, I asked the Lord what it meant, and I received the following. The lamp of intelligence shall be lighted over your path. I was satisfied. Oh, is God not a glorious being? My two remaining sisters, Percy Amanda, my younger by 4 years, and Leonora, my elder by 3, stand contradicted about the journey west. Leonora, a staunch church member, and her family will journey with us, but Amanda, whom I regret is not a member, is opposed to our leaving civilization in the middle of winter for who knows what or where. I believe damn fool was the term Eli, Amanda's husband, used. They do not understand why we cannot wait at least until the weather breaks. But the invitation to leave has been quite clear. Mormons out or death to them all. Who could ignore such a heartfelt proposition? There is not a belch in the land that is not blamed upon the saints. I would they might take responsibility for their own societal indigestion. And though I will admit that I shall miss this, my temporal, albeit Lilliputian sanctuary, my forthright reply to Eli was, if this is civilization, then I welcome with open arms the wilderness and savages, for they could not be any worse than the people of Hancock County, scoundrels. Amanda has invited me to leave Nauvoo, not for the West, but for her farm. And I could just as easily venture an hour further to Mother's house and take care of her in her declining years. I have to admit that the thought of living with an actual family member is persuasive. There I could stay, write, rest. To the friends of your childhood, your country, your home, go. Go and be happy. 'Tis folly to roam. What a bitter winter we are having. Well, at least their hot air can keep me warm. It is as active out there as noonday, and here it is coming up on 10. There are lights at the Weeks, discussing what is to accompany them west, I presume. Lights at the 70s Hall, Clark's store, and a light is still lit at the temple. I trust God is giving the brethren a map. I will miss my perch. The benefit of living in this high place is that it affords the glories of a watchtower. Sometimes as I gaze out, I imagine myself a goddess, sitting on the right hand of my husband, looking down from the heavens and delighting in all we have created. I wonder if I shall make any improvements on my world. One looks at this earth and questions if she can improve on the marvels of God's handiwork, or simply replicate and sustain them. Farewell. Farewell, I leave you. The time is drawing nigh, when I shall witness sceneries beneath a distant sky. This flowing sunny landscape in nature's grandeur spread will meet no more my raptured gaze, nor my delighted tread. Sentiment is a precarious station in which to pause. Perhaps I will make the winter, or the wool, a little less penetrating. This migration is not at all unlike when we were forced to leave Missouri on the kind extermination order of Governor Boggs. Lilburn Boggs. Fat, balding blowhard. What was he? Democrat? Whig? What is the difference? He was a politician, drifting wherever the blustering winds of popularity and power took him. The Mormons must be treated as enemies, he wrote, and must be exterminated or driven from the state for the public good. And he goes on and on about our lawlessness and evil doings. Lies, bold-faced lies. I know, I was there. Boggs, most despicable character, debased the vile name of politician. I could well as warm myself outside. The last of it. Little stick, you must last me the night. Governor Boggs, meet your reward. Finally, a use for a politician. Oh, our migration from Adam-ondi-Amen, Missouri took place in the winter as well. Let's see, the extermination order was October of '38. We left in December. I remember because I had just gotten a new pair of boots, and they were ill-fitting. Oh, it was frigid. The wind was pitiless. If you know that part of Missouri, the wind goes right through you. Father was still a member at the time. He left the church in '42, his faith unable to sustain him through the growing persecutions. Yes, well, but I digress. Winter, the wind whipping the snow round my skirts. We were standing outside the cabin, waiting for Father to hitch the teams. Oh, my feet were freezing from both the cold and shrinking leather. I decided to start out on foot and walk until the teams came up. Well, there I was, trudging along in the snow, weighted down by both skirt and mood. When about 2 miles out, I met one of the Missouri militia, who were really just an organized mob demanding our extermination.
This soldier accosted me with, well, I think this will cure you of your faith.
No, sir. It will take more than this to cure me of my faith.
My, you should have seen his face. Finally, he responded with, I must confess you are a better soldier than I am.
But, unless he was superior to his fellow soldiers, I did not take it as a compliment. The Saints migrated to Illinois and settled in Nauvoo. Commerce, it was called then. Oh, that was a time. Even amidst our sorrows, we had such hopes. We carved this city out of marsh and swamp. It was to be our place, our home. A city where the gospel and the saints could thrive undisturbed. Yes, well, Father and Mother settled in Quincy, about 60 miles south of here, and Leonora and I found work as seamstresses in Lima, about half that distance. Not long after we settled, Sidney Rigdon, who was a counselor in the first presidency, sent for me to teach school. I was to teach about 20 youngsters, including the prophet's children. Oh, my heart leapt at the thought of being so near the prophet again. And his wife. Whenever we get to wherever we are going, I shall hang out my shingle and sew. Ergo, I must have my tools. I no longer need Yes, I will take them. They will make excellent patches. And now, Shakespeare. You cannot expect me to travel unaccompanied. And Paradise Lost. Apropos, don't you think? Books 1, 3, and 4. I lost number 2 and never had 5, 6, and 7. I plan to get Paradise Regained when indeed we do. And Alexander Pope. I know a thing that's most uncommon. Envy, be silent and attend. I know a reasonable woman, handsome and witty, yet a friend. I am not sure I take to his verse. I know a thing that's most uncommon. I know a reasonable woman, uncommon woman. The rhyme is forced. Not to mention he's a nincompoop. I know a reasonable woman. Obviously, he knew no Mormon women, or he would not have deemed it so rare. But it was a gift from my father. It will attend me wherever I go. My treasure, my sanity. Well stocked. One's desk should be like one's heart, full and waiting to take dictation from heaven. One's faith, one's will, one's spirit. Nectar. It took my last dime. Some people buy food, but I say one can browse with the cows, but you cannot find India ink in the wilderness. 10 o'clock. You see, you can set your watch by them. I wonder if the tea service will be traveling with us or not. I suppose I will find out in the morning. It is on evenings such as this that I miss Joseph the most. His gentle spirit, his kind eyes. I have never met a man with such eyes. Aren't these lovely? They were my grandmother's on my father's side. I never knew her. She died before I was born. Wonder how I ended up with these instead of Amanda. I certainly was not the favorite, nor the prettiest. My hair, though adequate, is not fine. No. These do not belong with me, to possibly be lost or buried with me on the plain if I die. If I am to die. Yes. These belong with Amanda. I will send them along tomorrow. St. Vitus Dance. Where did I ever get these? They are Brother Richard's. Now, why do I still have... Ah, yes. I remember. June 24th, 1844. You may wonder why I recall so specifically such a common Monday. I was waiting for Brother Richards to pick up his order. I was growing concerned. He was usually so prompt. Then I heard Sarah at the stairs.
Good morning, Eliza. I brought you the calico that you asked for. I brought you the green check. They didn't have the blue.
She said that Joseph, along with Brother Richards, John Taylor, and Joseph's brother Hiram, had been taken by the Hancock County Sheriff early that morning and were to return later that evening. Sarah's words instilled an unexplained dread in my heart.
Come and taken them away.
I waited in this very room for word of their return, of Joseph's return, but none came. I longed to go to Emma to offer some comfort about the fate of her husband, and perhaps find some comfort myself as well. But it did not seem befitting. The city was quiet and calm, strangely so. My heart leapt at the sound of every passing horse. Then, on the morning of June 28th, before dawn, I heard a horse gallop through the streets. I ran to the window in time to see Brother Rockwell disappear toward the temple. Joseph was dead. Murdered at 5 p.m. the day before. Earthly happiness is fleeting. Earthly prospects quickly fade. Oft the heart with pleasure beating is to bitterness betrayed. Ah, methinks I see you bending like a willow o'er the urn. Yet a heavenly voice descending sweetly whispers, do not mourn. Why is my heart so troubled? Why can I not calm my spirit? Is this inner turmoil the result of a normal apprehension for the journey ahead? Or is it that I should not depart at this time? Would I be an ungrateful servant to admit I do not want to go? This is the third time, Father, and I do not want to go. Joseph said that we would fight in Nauvoo, that we would not be pushed out again. Chased from environs and nowhere to fly, too weak to contend and unwilling to die. Oh, where will a place for the Mormons be found? Shall we take to the skies or retreat underground? Will it ever stop? Will we ever find a place? Will Satan's rage against us ever be suppressed? After this journey, will there be another and another and another? I do not want to trudge about again. I do not want to start from scratch again. I do not want to be the faithful soldier again. I do not have doubts like these. What is it you are trying to tell me? Do you wish me to stay? Or is it that I wish to stay so much that I may get your wish as well? There is no floating candle tonight, and I am not satisfied. Oh, I wonder if Lorenzo is questioning the journey west, or Leonora. Do they wonder the same thing about me? And what of Emma? Dear Emma, the prophet's elect lady, so rebuffed by the elders for her views. There's Emma, who cannot go west, wishing to, and Eliza, who can go. Oh, I was unkind to Emma. I should have told her, but she detested the new order of marriage. Who could blame her, a man with more than one wife? Even Joseph was hesitant at first. But when God tells you that you will be destroyed if you do not obey, Joseph had to obey. He tried to explain to her, but the thought of sharing her husband with another woman was immoral and indecent. I too shared her views, until I understood that the importance of it was to progress in the eyes of God, to partake of the bounties of the Spirit, not of the flesh. Some have abused the order, and they will have to answer for that. But when ordained by God, as it was in the days of Abraham and Jacob, it is sacred not sinful. We should have told her. Joseph and I should have been forthright about our marriage and told her. Oh, she so loved Joseph. She felt betrayed by me. She had given me home and hearth, and in return I caused my friend bitter anguish. She removed me from her house, and I felt sorrow, but no rancor. After all, Joseph loved her more. Oh, I miss him so. His calming hand on my shoulder, his loving chastisement, his eyes like the eyes of God, who would peer into my soul, knew my faults, and cherished me still. Why was he taken from us? What was the need? And do not quote me Revelation. I have the revelation. I know the scripture. Why was he taken from us? From our hearts. From my heart. From mine. Oh, white is not for me. I am too old for white. Dreams do not come true. Hope does not spring eternal. And men are that they might have pain. And I have had enough of pain. I have sacrificed everything. My family, my property, myself. And in return, my reward is emptiness. Happiness has been taken from me, always from me. It is time for me to decide. Me. I am the one left alone. I am the one left without. I have no status, no real husband, no home. I have memories and a trunkload of inconsequential things. To the friends of your childhood, your country, your home, go. Go and be happy. 'Tis folly to roam. Hannah? The silence is playing with me. 4:30. Seems later. The temple is dark. It is much too late for inspiration. Warmth. Little stick! Governor Boggs. How marvelous. For once, a politician performs beyond expectation. Thank you. I was unsure. Now I know I have made the right decision. Yes, I have. Of course, Lorenzo will not agree. Leonora might. I know she is none too anxious to be living under a canvas roof. And President Young. I can just hear him bemoaning about the adversary's hold upon me. I am not thinking straight. Why is it that whenever a woman contradicts a man, it is she that is not thinking straight? Why do I care at all about President Young's opinions, given the fact that we are married in name only? Though I have never taken his name, and do not plan to. He is our prophet, and I sustain him. And why did I marry him? He asked. No. No, that is not entirely accurate. Romantic it was. Noonday. President Young comes round, hat in hand, not on account of respect, on account of the heat. Asks for me. I am perplexed as to why I've been beckoned by our new prophet. I hope, it is to begin the Relief Society again. But he takes me into the parlor, sets me down, and begins to explain. In ancient time, if a man's brother would die, the man would take in and marry his dead brother's wife and care for his family. There was an awkward pause. I am wondering what he is going on about. And then with great effort he says, Brother Kimball is taking several of Joseph's wives, Ezra Benson some, Brother George Albert some, which leaves me the rest. You, Eliza, are among them. Well, what woman would not swoon at such a proposal? I had never even considered the possibility of remarriage. As he turned to leave, I said, but I am already married to Joseph. This will be for time, not eternity, Eliza. You will break no commandment. It is the least we can do for Brother Joseph. And he turned and left. For Brother Joseph. For Brother Joseph. Obedience prevailed. I was married for time. Brother Joseph. My father's big house in Manaway, Ohio. Well, then it was called the Connecticut Western Reserve. But they came to their senses and shortened it to Ohio. Sidney Rigdon, who was at that time a Campbellite minister, brought around the sorriest looking creature. He seemed all legs and nose. His cravat never stayed put. On his way into the parlor, he tripped on a table and nearly broke my grandmother's vase that she had hand-carried from England. Had he broken it, there would have been no conversions in that house. Well, we all sat and visited a bit. He was cordial and self-assured, and he seemed a nice enough fellow. And then he told us of his visions. God appeared to him, and John the Baptist. And I was so excited, because I'd always believed that miracles and visitations were ongoing. And here was a man with a simple courage and faith to confirm that. But when he brought up the idea of a spiritual record, not unlike the Bible, but of an ancient people on this, the American continent, I became skeptical. And when he said these records were etched upon plates of gold, well, I thought, this man is tetched. But as he continued, I scrutinized his face. His eyes, in particular. Always look at a person's eyes. There you will find the truth. And Joseph's eyes. This was a good man. He invited Leonora and me to walk with him. Rarely had I heard Leonora so inquisitive and me so reserved. I couldn't speak. I was riveted upon this man, fascinated, not by his words, which at that time were of little consequence to me, but by his person. Never have I felt so welcomed into another's heart as with Joseph. My bosom's best affections I never could resign, until thy goodness drew them forth, and now my heart is thine. It took me nearly 5 years to be baptized. No one could ever accuse me of being impetuous. I grew to love the gospel and Joseph. Perhaps I needed 5 years to separate the two. My association with Emma had always been rather formal. I did not take to her for quite some time. She was too obstinate, opinionated, and argumentative. That is the pot calling the kettle black. Emma was too ruled by her passions, and I am uncomfortable with passion.
I am not a passionate woman. Ardent, yes. Passionate, no. I did not approve of Emma's insubordinate behavior. If there was doctrine she did not like, Joseph heard of it, and not only once. I felt the prophet's wife should be a strong and silent support, unquestioning of doctrines and practices coming from the Lord. But as time went on, we found we both had a fondness for Mr. Milton. She took to his heart, I his intellect. Oftentimes, prior to my withdrawal from them, Emma and I would sit and wait for Joseph to return from any one of 1,000 meetings. As we waited, the hours would grow late, and we would grow wise. Our subjects were lofty. What would the world be like when Christ ruled? Would we usher in the millennium in our lifetimes? And even the more poignant subject of the appropriate number of petticoats for proper dress. When Joseph would return home, I would watch them walk up the stairs, arm in arm. A poem cannot describe its simple beauty. At times I was envious, I am ashamed to say. I longed for his eyes to brighten when I came into a room. It is his, you know. I wonder how Joseph would advise me in this situation. Follow the prophet, he would say. Go west. And if this prophet was Joseph, I would follow. I would walk until my legs gave out. But it is not him. It is President Young. A good man and an inspired prophet, but President Young blamed Emma, I believe, for Joseph's death. It was easier, I think. Besides, they were never great friends. One too proper, one too passionate. Emma was fervent in which direction she thought the church should go. And that was not with President Young. President Young felt that all of Joseph's property should revert back to the church. Emma did not. But was it right of him to claim that Emma was Joseph's greatest enemy? That it was because of her persuasion that Joseph gave himself up and was led to Carthage? No. There were too many evils. It was not only her, it was Governor Ford, afraid of our power, and Marshall Green, afraid for his position, and Hiram Kimball and Reynolds Cahoon, afraid for their property. It was fear. I should not speak contrary to the prophet, but to lay the blame on just one. There were too many evils. Oh, if only I had met Joseph before Emma, things might have been different. Things would have been different. I would never have questioned anything he said. Never. I would never have condoned his surrender to the sheriff. Never! He would not have been betrayed by the Gentiles if I had been first. He would still be alive and we would be together. I would not be standing in this miserable little room, in this miserable little shack, waiting for a miserable morning to dawn. He would be alive. And he would be mine. No more. I could bear no more. No more hate and death and sorrow. No more disappointment from obedience. No more loneliness from service. No more trials of faith. Take this my burden, and if thou wilt not, I will cast it from me. No. Curse your suddenness, curse it! Now you have ashes and the draft. Curse it. You will regard his people's cry, the widow's tear, the orphan's moan, the blood of those that slaughtered lie. Plead not in vain before his throne, with constant faith and fervent prayer. You must have faith, Eliza, faith, which you struggled to obtain, of which you have silently boasted, of which you have abundantly possessed, which you no longer have. Pray, pray, Eliza. Guide me, Father, if you want. Give me the courage to follow that guidance, if you care. What God would not be moved by such conviction? I need you, Father. But do you need me? You have made the right decision, Eliza. Stay. Stay behind and sew. You are not worthy to call yourself a saint. Yes, Father, I will. I will trudge through the snow again for you. I will start from scratch again for you. I will be the faithful soldier again for you. For a wise and glorious purpose. I trust along the way you will make known to me that purpose. Rise up, Eliza. You have a long journey